Okay, so we are now recording. I've actually been recording for a few seconds now. So this is going to immediately load up to YouTube. We do have a time limit of 8 hours, so, try to keep your talking points short. Okay, and it's just going to keep going back and forth between us, mostly when we're talking or if we do any crazy movements. All right, so let's go ahead and get started today. Today we are joined with Natasha Duncan-Drake and Sophie Duncan. Together they have written 37 books and have co-authored a few individually. They write action, adventure, dystopian, erotica, horror, paranormal, and science fiction. How are you doing today?
Great, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. If it looks like I'm gleaming at the camera like this, I'm just trying to read. I just don't like how the light comes onto my glasses and you can't even see my eyes. And I think my eyes are sexy, so world. Thank you. All right, so we initially met through the April A to Z blog challenge. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, every April, I guess it started about 3 years ago, every April you make a post every day of the week except for Sunday, which gives you 26 days, and then you post an individual letter, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. It's a very great challenge, so if anyone ever wants to try doing it, go ahead, but you kind of missed your mark since it's now May. So I figure let's go ahead and start there for our conversation today. Can you briefly tell us what each of your blog challenges were and what was the turnout?
You want to go first? Okay. My blog challenge this time was ghosts. I chose a theme. Last year, I've done it for 2 years, the A to Z challenge, and so this time around I thought I was going to theme it. So I did ghosts. So I was telling people about the ghosts of Great Britain, and I also had a story that I was serializing on there as well called The Burning Web. So people got a bit of fiction and a bit of information about other fiction, ghost fiction writers, and some British ghosts as well. And it went fairly well, actually. I got a good turnout of people. It was kind of a challenge because they were long posts, so I deliberately split them up so people could read different bits if they wanted to. But it was actually good. I got about I think I increased my blog traffic during April by about 3 times, and the number of comments went up hugely as well. So I actually got people talking to me, which is unusual on my blog. Yeah, and I found the same thing. I got a throughput of between 120 to 150 people every day coming through, and between 15 and 20 people actually commenting, which is amazing because normally it's like one in a blue moon. So that was good. And my theme this year was vampires. It's my second year as well, and the theme definitely helped because if you do the theme reveal, which is a blog hop before the blog hop, then you get to meet lots of lovely people, which actually helps during the actual challenge because you actually get talking. And when you actually have comments on your blog, you tend to get more comments from random visitors as well. So that was good.
No, I definitely know what you mean by getting so many more visits and comments. Myself, I normally get about 300 a month, and I ended up getting about 800 views in a single month, which astounds me. My best day was like 86 views, which shattered my old record of 22. Oh,
It's good to see your posts getting hits, isn't it?
oh yeah. But more on that, out of all the people who commented on my blog, you two were the ones who did it the most. Between you both, at least once a day. Usually both of you did, but some days it was just one or the other. And I have to say, I owe you a lot of thanks because once I posted, I just kind of sat patiently waiting for one of you to post, and it would just like make my day. And
I'm glad of that. Yeah.
Being the
it was a lot of fun chatting. Yeah.
being the exhibitionist that I am, I'm kind of curious. What was it about my blog challenge that you like? How did you find it? And what do you feel you got out of it?
Well, from my perspective, there were two different things that I got from because you were doing the two different words and putting them together, the two different literary terms. What I found was that sometimes I learnt what a concept I already knew but didn't know the name of was. And other times it was a case of I knew the name but didn't know what the concept, what was behind it. And so I was actually learning stuff most days that I hadn't actually come across before. And what I really liked was the way that some of the stuff you were posting about, I'd never thought of it in literary terms before. And that was really interesting. So it was really interesting, especially with all your examples. That was great fun to go and read and look at all your examples and go, oh yeah. So yeah, that it was very interesting. And I always looked forward to find out what you'd done next. Yeah, being Trekkies, we understood the S9 and Star Trek references too. So that was cool.
I was very happy to do that. And it was actually the first time I ever started posting pictures and videos on my articles, and I'm glad that that had a very good turnout. So what were some other blogs that you want to maybe give a quick shout out to that you saw during that time?
There were actually, I mean, I ended up following about 40 blogs after the during the challenge and afterwards. So there's quite a few. So I'm going to go through probably some off the top of my head that really stuck out for me. But I do have a list on my blog as well. So if people want to check out the ones we liked, we have a list on our summary pages. But I think SD Neve, she's a Brit author, and she started posting actually about 2/3 of the way through the challenge some of the first parts of one of the stories she was actually telling us about throughout the challenge, and it was brilliant. I was just hooked. Yeah. So I kept going back to her. Yeah. Multicolored Diary was another one. That's the lass who writes that is a professional storyteller, and she was talking about various fairy tales and stories for each of the letters and colours. They were inspired by colours. That was a very good one. Yeah, Tim Brannan as well. He was talking about witches, but we got involved with him through the theme reveal. We met up with him because we found out we were all doing supernatural themes for our. It actually started because he commented on mine and said I was going to do vampires until last week, and so we all got there were a bunch of us got together and we had a mini hop within the blog hop, which actually worked really well. Because we all had, so we call it the Supernatural A to Z, and we had our own mini list as well, and that was a lot of fun.
I actually was very happy when you did that because you actually put someone on there who I actually set up their blog, and I used my own domain name for, and you know, it's something I do. If I can help someone do something, I will. That's what I'll try to do. Her name was Nicole Christopherson. I believe she was doing fairy tales as well.
I know we had several fairy tales. Is it sort of, was she using her real name, or was she? Oh, it's a blog called something else. Because I might have been remembering it under a blog.
Right Accountable.
Right Accountable.
It's like Write, WRITE.
I must have seen it. Yes. Because we went through all those every day. Yeah, so we went through the supernatural ones every day. And the fairy tale ones were good actually. We had quite a few fairy tale ones that were brilliant. And actually, it's amazing seeing the correlations. Some people had the same fairy tales or the fairy tale creatures as well each day, and it was interesting to see the different approaches to that. That was really interesting. Yeah. And another one that was really good was Patricia Lynn. Yeah. And she was doing little drabbles, every day. They were really good because some of them were really evil. They were. For people that don't know what drabble is, it's exactly a thick of exactly 100 words, which is quite tough, having done them.
Yes, I do remember that. I thought Twitter was hard enough, and then trying to do drabbles on your site, it was a fun challenge, but I really enjoyed it. But it was like I had to keep going through and deleting words and changing words.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes that's the fun bit because you have to challenge yourself to. No, I'm not going to say this way. I'm going to actually say it in an entirely different way, but I want to mean the same thing. So I find it good for my word skills. I have to go and find one word where I would have normally put five. Yeah.
Well, I'm not that talented. Oftentimes, I just had to change the point of the story. So whatever I was originally working on, I'm like, screw it, I can't do it. Let's change it to something else.
Sometimes it is a matter of you get like 75 words through and you're going, this is going to take another 1,000 words. I've got to do something else.
Well, I'm naturally a novelist myself. I want to write like 20 pages to talk about one thing, and it's like spending one page to talk about one thing is hard enough. 100 words?
Yeah. Yes, yeah. That's why it's so much fun sometimes, though. It's like, I've got to do this now. Yes. Yeah, I mean, she's the really wordy one. Yeah, I could spout off. I'm like you. I like a lot of words, and I have to actually trim myself down. And that's why I like it because it actually makes me be precise and clean and very, very short. Most of my writing, I waffle along. I mean, it's like one of our books, the one we wrote together, the Horde Mysteries, the first one, Sacrifice of an Angel. It started when we wrote the first draft. It was what 120,000 words.
140,000
140,000 words. By the time we finished, we got it down to
110.
110. So we'd knocked out 30,000 words because we are a bit wordy.
Well, the one novel that I've written, which I'm hoping that I release in 2015, I finished with about, how many words did I have? I think I had about 70, no, it's more than that. I think I had about 100,000 words, and then when I went back for my second draft, I ended up having 120.
Oh, right. So you need more information. Yeah, you see now is what we did is we realized, my God, this scene is boring. Let's rip half of it out.
Oh, no, I had plenty of that. There was a scene in my book where I actually explained in detail how to burn a stack of papers. It was beautiful writing, but boring as hell.
Yeah, we had some of those because the thing is, especially if it's a first book, you're trying to explain everything, aren't you? And I mean, when we write together, we plan the whole thing, and so we basically planned too much, and we went, they don't need to know this. They really don't need to know this. It's not important. Rip it out. We want to know it, but they don't. We can tell them that later. It'll be fine.
And when I was writing it, the point that I was trying to make is that the character doesn't know how to burn paper because she's in a paperless society. That was my original goal. And then when I'm looking at it, the second draft, it was like, yeah, people are probably going to burn the book, and it's on the computer.
Yeah, well, at least you had a reason for the scene. I mean, I think our scenes, it was just a bit of
Verbal diarrhea.
yeah.
Well, that's what you gotta do sometimes. And it's where I learned to develop my technique of just write it. Don't think about it too much. Do your initial planning, write it as fast as possible to get to the ending, even if you have to use gibberish, and then go back and say, "What were you thinking?"
Yes. Yeah, you see, I don't have that much planning usually in mine.
I do. She doesn't.
She plans everything. It's like sometimes she has things that look like they should be a scene, and actually it's just the plan for the scene. Whereas I have a tendency to I have a butterfly effect. I just write bouncing all over the story. So it's like if I have a scene in my head, I'll write that scene down. And then later I have to figure out how to get from scene A to scene B. Yeah, my planning doesn't tend to be, which is why when we write together, it's a bit different for me because we have to plan everything, and so yeah, that's quite fun sometimes.
Yeah. I have her on a leash when we write together.
Yeah, it's like, no, write this now.
Is that the leash or is that a scarf?
That's a scarf. Yeah, no, she just might strangle me with that later.
As I know what you're talking about, and I think I'm somewhere in the middle between you two because when I write, I actually plan out my characters into great detail, but I don't put too much focus onto the plot itself. I have an idea of where the plot is going. I have an idea how specific scenes are going, but how I get from A, B, C, and D, I have no clue. I just let my characters tell me, what are you going to do next?
Yeah, sometimes that's the best way. Sometimes if you just let them twitter in your ear about what they're up to, it just works much better than if you've going, no, you're going to go this way now, because sometimes they just won't, do they? It's like, no, I'm not doing that now, and it's like, but I want you to do that. Please do that, and they just won't.
And in my opinion, that just makes the characters more organic.
Yes. Yes, I think that's why I like writing by jumping all over the place, because sometimes I literally don't know what's going to go on in the middle, and it's far more exciting to write that bit then. I mean, that's one of the ways I keep myself interested.
No, I like to know where I'm going.
I like to have worked it out. I mean, I don't know exactly what's going on in every single scene, but I do tend to know what the arc is, where I'm going. I mean, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'll just write. But my short stories, I tend to just leap in and go for it. But my longer ones, I definitely have to have a plan, because the reason I do it is because I don't want to forget anything. If I've had a good idea, I want to write it down. Obviously, I write it down as I go along. So it's like I have a book. For every book, I have a file called book info, and every time I think of something, it goes in there. And sometimes it never gets looked at again, but mostly it ends up in there. It's like, I want so and so to do this at some point. Doesn't matter when. That's like, they just got to do it at some point.
I do exactly that myself. My current series, the Dagar series, I've told both of you about. I've just been writing notes and writing notes and writing notes, and it's usually like start, run, notepad, type something in, save it, put it in the folder, and wait till I need it again.
Yeah, for when I'm doing my planning, I actually use mind maps, and then I can bounce around. I put all my ideas in that. I don't necessarily have a plan from start to finish to start with. I've got a whole bunch of ideas. Let's throw them at a mind map. So I've got all these little arrows coming off from the center and then coming off from each other and joining up to talk about different characters. That's where I emphasize my characters normally. I usually have a list of characters, sometimes locations, sometimes plot points as well, and it's all just a munge that I can sort out later. Whereas I, especially in my latest one, have just been going, I think I'll go over here now, and oh, let's make up a planet. Yes, so yeah, totally opposite ends of the scale, which is weird, because sometimes when we're writing, if it's like not so long ago, we were both writing, and I think it was for a blog hop. We both had to write a very short piece of fiction, and it was because it was for a blog hop. There was a theme, and we basically both wrote exactly the same first paragraph without actually talking to each other. So when we actually changed over so we could beta read each other's fiction, it was like, oh, we're writing the same story. and we do that quite a lot. It's sort of, we tend to sort of sync up, I suppose, every now and then, do the twin thing. It can be very annoying sometimes. Yeah, it's fine when you're writing stuff like that for a blog hop. When you're writing a book and you suddenly discover that your sister has exactly the same idea, or your characters are called exactly the same thing. Yeah, we've done that too. You can't use that. No, I'm using it. No, I'm using it. No, I'm using it. Yes, we have had rows about that. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so this will surprise anyone at this point. We actually haven't really gotten into the interview yet. This is kind of like the nature of what I do, is just talk, but I throw in questions every now and then. So I'm going to kind of go into my questions now, but before I do, I wanted to surprise the both of you as a thank you for all the help that you've done posting every day on my blog, and we've actually talked since then through email, and you guys have helped me with my stories. I wanted to know if you'd be okay if I made a character for both of you in my story.
That would be lovely. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much.
We'd be honoured. Thank you.
Okay, I can't promise if you'll be a vampire or not, but maybe.
Oh, I'll forgive you if I'm not. Yeah. We don't mind being mortal.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about your writing. And looking at your website, is it Wittengreen? Am I saying that right?
Wittigan.
What was that?
Wittigan. Wittigan Press. It's a made up name. It's actually based on Sophie made up an entire language for the Hallwood Mysteries, which is one of our set of books, and it's one of the words from that, which is what you say at the end of a spell.
Yes, it means with blessings.
With blessings it is. So, I mean, you guys have talked a little bit about working together, but how does that compare when working by yourself?
I mean, working together takes a lot more organisation, and it's a lot slower because we basically we've got two different ways of working together. Actually, we've got the writing the book together, and we've got writing anthologies. So the anthology stuff is a lot of planning and making sure we're not writing the same stories, and so we theme out the stories and make sure that we're not actually overlapping. And then, but when we're writing together, as in writing the story together, what we do is we actually swap scenes. So we'll do alternate scenes. But there's an awful lot of planning. We've actually got a media wiki, which wikis. We have a local media wiki that we use to keep all the information for the stories in it, because so we can both go back and check that we've got our facts straight. And we plan out the whole book scene by scene, and we have the whole thing planned out.
So it's much more like my planning than like her
Yeah.
writing. But I mean, I think you can be much more indulgent when you're writing on your own. When I'm writing on my own, I'm at my own pace. I'm taking in what I want to do. It's actually just usually, I mean, an inspirational idea that I want to write. Whereas when you're writing together, you have to actually be much more focused and know you've got a time limit as well.
Yeah, especially because what we do is when we're writing together is one will write a scene, and then the next one will write the next scene, and then we'll keep swapping, alternating. So even if one of us has like this great idea for the next scene they're writing, they can't write it until the other ones finish the scene in between. So sometimes they're like throwing emails back at each other, going, "You finished yet? Have you finished yet?" And we have had it's probably the only way we have really, really big rows when we're working together. Because it's like one of us will have an idea and it's like, and the other one will like it, and then we'll have a huge row about it, and then it'll be easily solved within about 2 minutes when we actually decide to talk to each other again. I mean, I think, yeah, it's like so. So it can be. It's sort of writing together is a lot more volcanic, probably is the way of putting it. There are eruptions every now and then, but it's still fun. It's just a different type of discipline. Especially for me, because I don't plan anything. So, I mean, I started one novel where I didn't even know what it was going to be about. I just started writing the first page and went, whatever comes out, comes out. The first page is now completely gone from the novel, but the novel's okay. So it's a bit. It's sort of the comparison is there. One's much more has to be much more ordered.
Yeah, I mean, we're just planning out the next book in the Horde Mystery series, actually, and what we're going to do with that is actually write it alongside our own individual work in progresses. So basically it's something that when we get it passed back to us, we can do the next scene, so that we're not actually waiting, because it was actually the first book we published for Wittigan Press between us, wasn't it? So the first big, long novel we published. But now we're actually, because we've got lots of stuff on the go, we're going to keep it in the background and use it as a constant piece.
Undoubtedly, there will still be there. Have you finished yet? But
at least we'll have something else to do in the in between time. So yeah.
Well, that's all fantastic. There was one thing that you talked about I wanted to touch on myself, and you were talking about doing Media Wiki. And I've never actually used Media Wiki before for writing, and for my new story that I'm doing, I decided to do it because, one, it's a historical fiction, and I know nothing about the 1300s or Europe as a whole. So I had started writing all of these notes and ended up being like 20 pages long. So I'm like now creating a media wiki just so I can have fast access to it.
Oh, good luck with that. It's very useful. Yeah, we actually used Semantic Media Wiki in the end to basically allow us to then search it afterwards really easily.
Well, I'm just glad that I'm not the only one who thought up of using that, because I'm like, oh, dude, this is perfect. I mean, I already know how to do some coding, so MediaWiki is really simple for me to use, and I'm just getting a lot of joy out of it. So I'm just glad that you two also do it as well.
It's a very good tool. Well, for anybody who has a little bit of a technical knowledge. I wouldn't recommend it for anybody who's a non-techie because it can get a bit complicated unless somebody else sets it up for you. Yeah, if it's something like DreamHost or something and it's already set up for you or something, it's fairly easy. But setting it up on your own computer can be a bit of a challenge, just because Windows and MediaWikis don't always like each other. No.
Yeah, I kind of cheat. I have GoDaddy, so.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So it's very useful when you have because I use DreamHost and they have it as an install as well. So. It's sort of, but we actually had it on a stick, on a USB stick. We got Wiki on a stick so that we could take it from computer to computer. Because we were a bit paranoid when we first started, weren't we? We're not paranoid anymore. It's like, oh, throw it at the internet, it's fine. Yeah, so we had it on little pen drives to begin with.
I mean, I could install it on my computer, but as technological minded as I am, I'm also lazy, so.
Yeah, and sometimes these things just don't want to talk. I mean, the only reason anything works on my computer is it used to be, before I was made redundant, it was my work computer. And it still has all of the infrastructure set up because I was a programmer. So I can just throw something on and then it tends to just work. So that's nice. But as soon as that computer goes, I'm stuffed.
What languages did you work with?
Visual Basic, Java. I did a lot of database. I also did a lot of database programming, so I was doing lots of stored procedures and reporting and stuff like that. So that was my forte. But I was supposed to be doing some of the Java as well, but I wasn't actually very good at that. I'm the Java programmer. Yeah, she's the Java programmer. Or was. I'm now a project manager. Hey. Yeah. So what languages are you familiar with?
Well, in high school, I did Visual Basics. That was my entry into programming, which was a lot of fun, but I never used it again. In college, I decided to go old school and get into BASIC, which was very, very fun. Everyone else was doing DOS scripts. Well, everyone was trying to do their own matrix code, you know, how it falls from the screen. I'm like, all you're doing is just a repeating pattern over and over again. I've done Java and C++ and PHP.
C++, I hated C++. Yeah.
Oh, so did I.
I did my entire PhD in C++. I prefer Java. You can't shoot yourself as many times in the foot with Java as you can with C++.
Well, when I did C++, that was also in high school. And I came from Visual Basics to doing C++, and it's just like, it's a weird experience. You should go the other way around because you're used to the visual interface of Visual Basics to C++, being just text. Yeah.
Yeah. See, when we were at university, we didn't have C++. We had C.
Oh.
Undergrad we had C. C++. I did C. Postgrad we had C++. I'll never forget because we had to do Pascal in the first year because the computing department had a thing about Pascal, and then in the second year we had a course about converting Pascal to C, and literally the guy just stood at the front and said there is a difference between the for loop in Pascal and C. He never told us what it was. The whole course only ever went to one lecture. We all just went and bought the book. Went, this is easier. Yeah, that was fun.
Well, I actually have a game development company on the side. I haven't participated too much into it given my disability. I'm hopefully going to get back into that, but that's where I developed my understanding of Java and Android development.
Yeah, I never go into Android. No. That was a bit late for us because we were already, you know. I looked at it whilst I was at, when I was working as a developer, but never actually got into it because it looks really interesting. But I just haven't had time. I'm just sticking with the PHP and MySQL for the website stuff at the moment. Yes. Yes, having to fix other people's coding errors in because our website has a front end, and unfortunately they decided to go to a 2 point something version so it would run on the latest PHP, and but there's no conversion between the two,
So you just have to work it out
and
yourself.
the old stuff doesn't work on the new stuff, so it's like, ugh. But yeah, so
We're working on it. We're
we're
getting
working on
there.
it. We're almost there. Joy of joys.
I've never worked in a professional IT service before, but I do have some idea of what that's like. But I used to do, what's it called? I used to be a field agent. I used to go out to places and fix things. And I know a little bit of what you're talking about, where one component is updated and it doesn't work with the new component, and everyone's yelling at you to figure out, why is this not working? And it's like, I wasn't the one who updated it.
They broke it. It's not my fault. Yes, yeah. Technology's always like that.
Especially when they're still using Windows NT 3.5.
Oh
wow.
my god. Whoa.
I think XP's just gone out of support, so what? NT must be in the dark ages by now.
Dear.
Oh,
I'm still on XP. I can't afford to go to 7, but I'm sad that XP is out of contention. But it's been over 10 years, my god.
wow.
Well, let's face it, XP is the most reliable of Windows operating systems ever. The rest of them are a little bit dodgy in places.
At least
What?
8 isn't as dodgy as 7.
Yeah.
I don't know, I like 7. But I remember when Windows XP first came out, I was in college at the time, and everyone complained about it because it's like, it's just eye candy. It's just Windows 2000 with a pretty interface. And then after, Service Pack 1 came out, it really started to be like, everyone loved it.
Yeah. It worked.
At least it isn't Windows ME.
Oh.
Oh no. I've done tech support for DSL, and I had a lot of customers with ME.
Why doesn't it work? Because it's ME.
Yeah. That was a bit of a mistake, wasn't it? That was a bit of lemon, that one. But yeah.
Well, they were trying to take the great things about Windows 98 and combine it with Windows 2000 just to try to make money,
Yes.
Yes.
and failed miserably.
Mm. Yeah. Oh well.
But we're here to talk about writing, not computers. So. It's been a long time since I've talked shop with anyone. Mostly it's just like the walls I have to talk to, so I'm happy to be able to talk technology with someone. All right, so
For anyone who was watching that, for all of the jargon that just passed.
yes, these two lovely ladies are the reason why you should do Java. If they did it, you should do it. All right, so now when it appears that you write across a spectrum of genres, but how would you describe your work as a whole?
Varied.
I mean, we're definitely plot-based writers, aren't we?
Yeah.
I think. I mean, the idea comes first. I think the idea, and then the characters fit in with that. But I mean, sometimes characters push the plot along. But yeah, so we're probably plot-based. We hope mainly. I mean, it's fantasy genre. It's demons. We do have crime, but it's involved with magic as well and stuff like that. So summing up in a few words is quite difficult, but
Yeah, speculative fiction works quite
Yeah.
nicely.
Okay, well then let's reverse the question. What is it not?
What is it not?
It's
not
not
literary fiction.
There's that whole twin thing you talked about.
Pardon, sorry?
There was the whole twin thing you talked about,
Yeah,
having the
yeah.
same idea.
Yeah, I do apologise if a cat suddenly goes rushing across the scene. One of them's just can't come in. Um, yeah, so it's
Where'd it go? I thought I saw a cat. You said there would be a cat. Sorry, I
basically.
interrupt you.
No, that's okay. Don't worry. My brain is going wish-wash anyway, so that's fine. Um,
There it
yeah, so
is.
basically, it's not literary fiction, but we've never met a genre we didn't like. So, and we like mixing genres as well. It's like the horror mysteries is police procedural and magic. We like to think of it as Harry Potter meets Midsummer Murders. Um, and so we like mixing what we're doing, and so it's basically just varied. I mean, we've probably got stories for just about anybody on there. It's like the anthologies, especially. What we did back in 2012 is during July we had what we called the giveaway games, and every day we had a free short story, but it was only up for one day, and then we re-edited the whole thing, put them into anthologies, and there are stories, there are horror stories, there are there's erotica, there's crime stories, there's young adult, there's fantasy, there's science fiction. So those ones have basically everything in there, the whole spectrum of what we write, and we basically just enjoy it. Is what we do.
And we hope other people enjoy what we write too.
Yeah, because we basically write what we like to read. At least I do.
I do too.
Yeah, it's
I have had the thought of trying to write a Mills and Boon romance or something, but I've never quite come across one that
grabs the imagination.
Yeah. Whereas of course we write erotic romance and stuff,
and I mean we come from a fan fiction background, which is the male fan fiction,
Kirk's book,
yeah,
or in our case, Mythos to Richie, that kind
yeah. We started in Highlander fandom a very long time ago, and so that's where our eroticas come from, because most of our erotica is gay fiction. And that's where that's all come from, and because we really enjoyed writing that in the fan fiction community, so we just went original and wrote our own there. And
So wait a minute. You're saying that erotic, well, that romance is not erotica? Because you said you combine erotica and romance. I always thought romance was erotica.
no, you can have romance without erotica.
Oh, okay.
You can have erotic romance, or you can just have romance. I mean, these days things are I mean, a lot of the books are getting riskier and riskier, and more risque and more risque. So a lot of the romance does have erotica in it as well. But
yeah, as my mother keeps complaining, because she reads the Mills and Boon style books and things, that went a little far for her taste. She likes fade to black.
but yeah, so I mean, these days it's very difficult to pin down genres anyway, I find. I mean, it's like once upon a time there was fantasy and there was science fiction, and now they're called speculative fiction and managed together, and it's all very
Actually, I didn't know that. Because I've seen that term speculative fiction, and I'm like, okay, wherever the hell that is. Moving on.
that's sci-fi and fantasy and and that type of fiction, as well as far as I can tell anyway.
Yes, I think that's how it goes. Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, let's face it. The publishing industry loves new classifications. I mean, we've got new adult now as well.
Yeah, when we started like 3 years ago, there was only young adult, but now we've got new adult as well. So
it seems to be young adult, possibly with sex thrown in on the side.
or slightly older characters. I think you're sort of older teen characters. I think for the new adult.
Yeah.
By the way, any ladies that are watching, yes, I do understand the difference between romance and erotica. I was kidding there. Most of what I say is kidding, so don't think I'm some dense guy. Speaking of a young adult, I've been wondering what young adult is, and I'm going to Comic-Con next month, so hopefully I can talk to a lot of young adult authors there. But I'm always wondering, well, how do you define young adult? I'm kind of curious.
I suppose young adult for me usually means what sort of 16 and above age group of the characters, although younger people read young adult, but it tends to be slightly safer than say it's than say new adult, where you're getting into sort of more violence, more sex. Although I mean, young adult, there are some that do have sex and stuff because they're dealing with modern teen considerations. So there are ones that deal with a whole mixture of different issues, or they actually do have sex in them. But young adult tends to be a more responsible environment where it's dealt with. I mean, some people are going to disagree with me, I think, but that's the way I see young adult. It is aimed at the sort of, I think, 13 to 18, although lots of people read, but that's kind of the youngest group you're aiming at. So it's basically above middle grade, but not quite aimed at the full adult. Yeah, basically, I just think it's slightly. I agree. It's slightly tamer, I think, but I'm not sure if that's true anymore. It can just be just as. I think that's probably why they brought in the new adult, actually, because I think people were getting confused over what young adult actually was, and I think that some of them were pushing the envelope so far that they needed another category. Because I've always thought of young adult as people are supposed to think it's safe-ish, I think.
Yeah, safe-ish.
Ish.
Yeah.
And it gets more and more ish every year, I think. But
Yeah, I don't know if I could ever do young adult, and not because I don't think I could ever write it, but because I don't want to put limitations on myself. You know, when I write a story, I write a story. I don't think about who my target audience is going to be. I think about what is required to tell this story, you know. And my thoughts of doing young adult is like, well, now I have to censor myself on the sex and the violence and all of that. And I'm just like, I understand the appeal, and I understand that it's a very lucrative business because there's a lot of people out there, but I have to take my hats off to anyone who can write it, because I just don't see how I could put myself in that position.
yeah, I think it all depends on the story. It really does depend on the story you're trying to write. I mean, if it's about young people, and it depends on the setting as well, I would assume. I mean, because in certain setting, let's face it, Hunger Games is very violent.
Yeah.
But
And that's definitely YA.
they seem to be able to. That seems to be okay because it's dystopian. And I don't know where the line is anymore, actually. But I
I
think
think if you call it YA, it's probably YA. If you call it new adult, it's new adult.
I think it might even be just down to the age of the characters these days. But it's a very interesting area of discussion, and I don't think a lot of people actually agree.
No, it's a bit like grammar, really, isn't it? No one's ever going to agree on the exact definition.
But I can understand why you wouldn't want to limit yourself. I mean, that's just that. Yeah.
Well, if I do it by accident, that's one thing, but to do it on purpose, I would feel, I'm a writer and I can't think of words. What's wrong with me? I would just feel very limited.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of. I suppose if you're in the mindset and your story comes out that way, yay. But if it doesn't, then ripping bits out just because they won't suit the young adult market would just be sacrilege.
Okay, so how did you two start writing? You've talked a little bit about that, but what was it specifically that said, you know what, I'm going to start writing books online? And also, what point during that did you decide to, like, let's write a book together, even though we'll probably kill each other?
Well, I mean, we've been writing, both of us, since we were very young. So
we've been writing stories. I mean, I started in primary school, but then the first one I wanted to really get published, I was about 11, but it's in a drawer, never to be seen again.
I just thank my lucky stars that the internet didn't exist when we were teenagers, because I wouldn't want that stuff online.
Yeah. But anyway, so that we went through that phase, and we developed our writing to begin with, and then we got at university. Actually, we found fan fiction. And the fact that what we've been doing for years on our own, like writing our own extra plots for different movies we'd seen and stuff, was actually real. And other people did it.
So and you could talk to other people about it. That was the great bit, because there's a huge fan fiction community online, and getting into that, there are lots of professional writers out there who are into fan fiction as well, and everybody is very supportive, and you can improve your writing skills so much, and it's so much fun to share stories. And so we did that for years,
and then I think we got to the point when you made redundant, and that was the kind of thing, because she was looking at what she was going to do next and whether she was going to get another job, and we sat down and thought, well, actually, why don't we do this professionally? We've been wanting to for years, but never had the impetus to do it. So we then finally said, well, let's form our own. First of all, we wrote the Horde Mysteries and thought, okay, we'll submit it to agents and stuff like that and go through the normal processes. Then we discovered ebooks, and we thought, oh, we can do this ourselves. We're techies, we can manage this, and so we decided to form our own publishing company.
That actually came from the idea for that came from when we went to a self-publishing course run by HarperCollins. And they knew nothing about ebooks at that point, but
Nada.
They knew a lot about sort of publishing your own stuff. And they mentioned that if you have a brand, you see it looks much more professional. So if you have, so we formed our own company so that we could have a brand to publish our fiction under. At which point, if people see a little logo, they're much more inclined to actually look at the contents rather than just dismissing it, because the first thing you have to do is hook somebody. So you've got a cover and you've got the blurb, and if you can see a logo on there, people actually are much more inclined to actually click and find out what's going on. So that's why we started our own company, and then we also started a little company called Penny Dreadfuls 21, which was actually a writer for hire company, where we would write short stories, commission short stories for people, and we wrote a few for that, but it didn't really take off. I don't think we did the marketing very well. It was our first go, and the marketing we just weren't very good at. But we still had some short stories out of that, which were we did a charity drive to begin it, and so we had nice sort of free short stories to start our Amazon accounts with and things like that. So that was useful. And then we just started.
I mean, writing together was my fault, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I suggested that.
That's your fault.
That was my fault. I said, why don't we? I mean, we're twins, and I think I've got this idea for a story with twins, and it was a very amorphous thing. But it's a hook. I think it might get agents and things. When you say we're twins writing about twins, it's something we can bring to the market that not everybody can. So that's when we started writing together.
Yeah, and then.
Now, do you have agents at all?
No. Still looking every now and then. We do our own we're both doing our own stuff at the moment, but every now and then it's like but what I don't tend to just send things out to as many agents as I think might like it. Now what I do is if I see an agent on Twitter or something and I think, oh, they look like they might be a really good match, I'll send something off. But it for a while it was a bit soul destroying. Before we set up the company, just send it, because it's like rejections are just, they really,
especially when it's photocopied so many times you can barely read it.
Yes, those were.
Well, I myself, I do intend to get an agent one day, but in all honesty, I want the agent to come to me, and I want to work hard to a point to where an agent would be attracted to me. You know, I don't want to be like at their beck and call, begging them and saying, please take me. I want to show what I can do and what kind of following I can get before that. By the way, if any agent is out there watching this, my phone number is 480.
Yeah, I mean, that's why the ebook market now is so exciting, actually, because if you can get yourself to the top of the sales through your own hard work, the agents are actually noticing people on things like Amazon. So, I mean, the book market has changed so much over the last few years, and it's still changing, simply because now it is the readers who are defining who gets the big contracts, because because everybody's self-publishing, so the readers are going, well, I think I'll read that. I don't want to read that one over there, which is Big Six are pushing like this. They want to read the one over there. And word of mouth is so incredibly important these days, which is why social media may be a bit of a nightmare, but it's very, very useful. Mm-hmm.
I always call it the words of fingertips.
Yes.
Bad joke, sorry. I have those every now and then, so just forgive me ahead of time. Okay, well, you were talking about fanfic, and I actually agree with you a lot, because I've done my fair share of fanfic, and before I decided to try to write again, seriously, despite my disability, sorry I keep talking about that, but it's hard for me not to. But I was doing fanfics for like a year before that, just trying to get the practice of it. I would like to actually hear more about what fanfics you did, if you can talk about that, and what was the fiction that you were writing for, and what was the experience you had?
It started in a big way on LiveJournal with Harry Potter fanfiction. Well, for me anyway. I wrote this epic called Gold Tinted Spectacles, which I published over, I think it was about 20 weeks, and because it's got 40 parts to it. And the Harry Potter fanfiction community was so big, and it was Harry Draco / by the way. I swore to myself once upon a time that I'd never write Harry Draco / and I read some and it was so good I had to have a go. And the community was so supportive, and the feedback was huge, that I had people giving me feedback on the story, which they loved, on my writing style, which at the time they didn't love so much, but it was very useful information, and I've just never looked back from there. I think I've got 303 stories on AO3 at the moment.
AO3 is Archive of Our Own,
Yes.
Which is basically a place for transformative works. It's an archive set up by volunteers to host as much transformative works, which includes fan fiction, as possible. So anyone who's posting on LiveJournal and stuff like that, you can import straight into AO3 and have your stuff up there, which I've still got to do. I don't have as many fanfics as her, but I mean, we actually did. I mean, we've still got. We started in Highlander in the mid-90s, and
As a het writer.
yes, yeah, we wrote heterosexual. Yeah. No, I didn't actually write any slash. Oh, I did. It was fem slash though, which is but it was we actually did. Highlander had 6 seasons, the TV series, and the last season, well, the second to last season, they killed off a character, which really annoyed quite a lot of people in the fandom. So we wrote our own season 6, and we organised that.
Yes.
So it was the first time we'd ever done editing as well. So we had 23 episodes, I think it was, which each written by different people. And it was a weekly thing, and it came out on the internet. I think the site's still up, the Highlander fanfiction season.
I think it's there somewhere. I think it's on D-Twins.
So that was the first really big. I mean, that was huge interaction with lots of different Highlander fans as well, and lots of different writing styles.
That was way back when Highlander fandom consisted of about 4 mailing lists.
And when the internet was just, oh blimey, I sound ancient now. The internet was just getting going.
Yeah, because it was in the 90s.
Yeah, so that's where we went, and then we never looked. Well, I mean, we moved into the slash fandoms when we got to Harry Potter. You eventually got me onto LiveJournal.
Yes. LiveJournal was where everything was happening a few years ago. It's a blogging site, and it's very, very good for interactions. Unlike most of the modern blogging sites, which are completely useless for having long conversations you can go back and find.
Except Google Plus.
It's still difficult to find them again later. Okay. Whereas on LiveJournal, they're always just there, and you've got these nice tags that make it all very easy to find. And it was the place to post fiction that wasn't fanfiction.net after they threw the epi about adult fanfiction. And yeah, so I started in Harry Potter, and I've been through too many to count. Too many fandoms to count.
She picks up fandoms like the rest of us pick up. I think Sweets.
Yeah. I mean the two I'm really into at the moment are Teen Wolf and Avengers.
Well, me personally, I really wish that I had known about fan fiction for the longest time because, when I was younger, I wanted to make my own Star Trek film. I tried writing scripts for it, tried getting people together, and of course, people just let you down, so that never happened. And I've always tried to write my own Star Trek novels, but I never knew that there was that whole thing out there. And I went most of my life not knowing about it. And I actually wrote fan fiction for Star Wars, even though I hate Star Wars. Gotta be careful. You, as a nerd, you can't hate Star Wars, but I do. But I wrote it for Star Wars: The Old Republic, the MMO game. I had a character in there because I still like the Old Republic stuff. I just hate anything George Lucas touch. Go ahead.
I like the original Trek movies, but I'm not
Star Wars movies.
Oh, Star Wars movies. Sorry, I knew what I'm talking about. Really, I like the original Star Wars movies, but I don't like the new ones.
Now the new.
I like 5. That's about it. Everything else sucks.
I like 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, I remember seeing 5 in the cinema, and our parents took us because we were about 7, and we were in plaster at the time because we'd had operations on our feet, and so we couldn't go to the beach with the school trip because it was a school trip, and they'd taken everybody out to see the Shire horses, and then they were going to the beach, and so our parents had to pick us up, and they took us to see Empire Strikes Back, and I remember being scarred for life because I had no idea who these characters were, and they didn't win.
Yeah,
and it was like, no! I was only 7, and it was like, what? Yes, so I remember that one fondly, but that's where my love of sci-fi started. I blame it totally on Luke being in that in that tube.
Yes, okay.
Well, would you care to hear where my love of sci-fi came from?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can honestly say that I've been watching Star Trek since I was born, because when my mother held me in the arms for the first time, she was watching Star Trek. But I grew up with, my mother was very big into sci-fi, more specifically Star Trek, so that's where my love of it came from. And as a child, I loved Star Wars, but as I grew up and became much more of a critical thinker, that's when I'm like, wait a minute, these are not adding up. But it was always Star Trek for me that was my love of it.
I used to run the Star Trek Society at university. We were the biggest society on campus, except for those about religion or politics.
I hate to tell you, but Star Trek is religion and politics.
Yeah, but they wouldn't recognize us as that. It was totally unfair. Yes. Yes, we were actually at uni. I found out later we were known as the Star Trek twins because I would occasionally wander around in my uniform.
Now, this is going to sound nerdy of me, but which kind of uniform? Which?
It was
several.
It was that was yeah, but the one I used to wander around in was the Next Generation captain's jacket and black trousers. Yeah, it was Next Gen because that Next Gen is where I remember watching the original Trek in reruns when I was younger, but it was Next Gen where I really got into Trek. Because it was at exactly the right time because we were must have been 16 or 17
Yeah.
when it came out, and it was like, this is so cool. And yeah, So that's where I really got into Trek. And then, because what we used to at university, we had a contact in a comic shop, and we'd get copies of NTSC tapes that had been converted to PAL and then copied numerous times, so the quality was really bad. But they were straight from the States. They were straight from America, so we had the new episodes, and we'd all sit in this humongous lecture theatre with this tiny little television at the front and a VCR and watch these episodes, and we were enwrapped.
Yeah, no downloads then.
No. I mean, the youngsters these days don't know how when they have it good.
Well, I wanted to say in response to you walking around in the captain's uniform, someone thought a lot of herself. But I was thinking...
Running the society!
Well, okay, then I would have to say that you think low of yourself for not being an admiral. But I was thinking about when you were talking about the trouble that you had to deal with in seeing Next Generation episodes, which, by the way, I was 7 when it came out, so thank you for making me feel young, because lately I've been feeling old. But I didn't actually watch it until I was like 10 or 11, but when Star Trek Voyager was on, I never got to watch it because I usually had to go to bed when it came on. And so I would sneak up at night and go in my closet, and I had this small black and white TV, and I had to watch Star Trek Voyager completely in black and white.
That must have been interesting.
Yeah, it's much better with color, I have to say.
Yeah, I imagine because you can't tell who's going to die next. You can't tell what colour the uniform is. But yeah, I watched the beginning of Voyager religiously, but it lost me after a while.
I saw the very end of Voyager and the very beginning, but somewhere in the middle.
It's like Deep Space Nine did the same thing. I really enjoyed the early seasons, and then they got the Dominion, and it just took over. And I have to say that I'm not fond of arcs.
No, what arcs?
I don't mind arcs that are like there, and you have to deal with them every now and then. But when they take over the entire series, yeah, not my idea of fun.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that because that's my one complaint with TNG was great by itself, but never really had any arcs. Maybe once in a while. The first 2 seasons had an arc, I think, a small one. But when DS9 came out, I didn't watch that until years later. Like a few years ago, I actually watched all the way through, and I loved it. I didn't like the first few seasons, but in the later stuff with all the Dominion War, that was fantastic. And then after that, they never did it again, and I'm like, oh man, you guys are missing out. So I find it interesting that it's the story arcs themselves that you didn't like.
Yeah, you see, we clearly have sort of opposite likes for the. You see, I much prefer the Monster of the Week and things like that in things like X-Files, and then because X-Files were the ones that really started it, I think. They were the ones that had this huge arc. No, Babylon 5.
Babylon 5.
Were they at the same time?
Yeah, I think approximately.
Yes.
Yeah, so they were doing the whole arc thing, and then everybody does the arc thing, and the arc thing really annoys me a lot of the time. I think it's because sometimes it takes over from the characters, and so you're not getting
a story each week. You can't. There's nothing to digest in the one episode. You have to see them together for them to actually work. And I object to that because I want something out of the episode as well. And if you're not going to give me something, you're only part of something, I get a bit fed up.
Well, there I can actually agree with you on. There was a show called Heroes. What's up?
Said yeah, we
Heard of that one.
Oh God, I hated it because there were a lot of episodes where they were just going over backstory or going around in circles. It was very, here's a quick moment, but we don't get any character development at all. We don't really advance the plot at all. We just have to tell this story. And I hated it right from the beginning of it. And I watched all 3 seasons all the way. And DS9, in my opinion, wasn't so guilty of that because it still allowed the characters to advance a little bit. But I can definitely understand the point you're making there.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the better examples. It's like Babylon 5.
The early episodes,
you could watch individually. I mean, there were bits where you had to know what the F was going on, because you couldn't actually, and because the characters had got something to do that they'd introduced earlier or something. But later on, you just could not watch it, because if you hadn't had the last season's worth of backstory, it made no sense. And I tried jumping in and out of Babylon 5 in the later seasons, and it just...
See, I think that was the problem with the X-Files as well. It went off the deep end with this arc, and you had to have seen it all to know what was going on. Whereas in the early seasons of the X-Files, they had their arc, which was going through, because you had the whole alien, Mulder and the aliens going on. But you could still pick it up. And I think the skill in arc writing is if you can write a story that does something, but is also part of the arc.
Yeah.
And I think in some cases, I think Deep Space Nine did do that well. But in other episodes, I just wanted to pull my hair out.
Well, I think the show Andromeda was also an example, at least the first season, where they had a story arc, but it was still episodic. But
Yes.
I was thinking, as far as today versus when we were both children, the issue with arcs is that you have to see every single episode, and there's no going back unless you happen to see it on a rerun, but then you have to wait till the end of the season to be able to do that. Nowadays, and I think this is why story arcs are a lot more common, is that if I miss an episode, I can find it online somewhere, or I can eventually get the DVD set and just watch it then.
Yes, I think downloading and DVD box sets are actually a gift for anything that has an arc. I mean, it's like I've been watching the latest season of Teen Wolf, and I actually acquired it, and I haven't actually watched it yet because I wanted it to get to the end before I watched it, because it does have a partial arc in it. It does have episodes as well, but it's got a long-running arc through the whole thing. And I prefer to watch anything with even the remotest arc if I have it all.
Yeah, it's like Doctor Who. I have to have every episode of the Doctor Who episode thing to actually watch it. So if I know it's going to be a two-parter with the new format of Doctor Who, I'll always wait until the second week and then watch the first one first, and then normally the second
Don't
one.
like cliffhangers. Not fond of cliffhangers at all.
Still trying to make it through to season 1. It's like my third attempt of trying to watch it. I know, I'm a bad nerd. I enjoy it okay. I just like, if this didn't already have such a fan following before season 1 came out, I think it would have been criticized heavily. It's full of plot devices, and I just find it fascinating, but I do enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean,
By the way, if anyone's curious, I live in Alaska. If you want to kill me, go to Alaska.
yeah,
But let me go ahead and stop you guys there, because, as fun as this is, I'm having a lot of fun interviewing. And I have to probably do like a second interview like in the near future, because this is a lot of fun. I do want to get back to my questions and back to the writing aspects. What's up?
I said that sounds good.
All right. So we already discussed that one. So what is your writing process? How do you go from an idea to actually making it into something people can buy? And how importantly, or more importantly, how do you determine if it should be a joint effort or an individual one?
Usually, determining whether it's an individual one or a joint effort tends to happen when the idea occurs, because if it's going to be something we're going to do jointly, that will be something we've talked about and come up together. So we will know we're developing it together. It'll be either one of us will have had an idea, and we'll just go, how about this? And then we'll move forward from there. So the individual stuff, that's just when an idea occurs to one of us.
Yeah. I mean, as far as going from an idea to actually fleshing it out, I mean, we've already mentioned mind maps and notebooks and stuff like that. I mean, I got
ideas all the time, and I'll just throw something at a mind map and leave it and let it sort of sit there and bumble in the back of my head and see if anything comes of it. So then it comes to, I mean, I think it's worse thing if something starts to really percolate in my head and I start getting more ideas for it rather than just some little scene somewhere. Then I'll start building it, and I'll start making more detailed notes. I'll start probably planning out the story then as well. So I'll start working out what the overall story is, whether it's going to be. I'll also probably think about then whether it's a single story or whether it's multiple books, that kind of thing at that point as well, because I have different formats for some of my stuff. It's like I've got 2 serials that I'm running, which are short stories that link directly together, and then I've got some that are going to be they're novel-length books, and there's going to be several in the series and things like that. So I'll think about that as well, because that defines how I plan and break down the actual ideas I've got. And so I'll usually end up with a plan in Scrivener. I use Scrivener actually, which is really good to do that, because it has little cards that you can fill in on the screen and then rearrange them if you want to and things for the different scenes and things. What I do is I just start writing usually. I get an idea, I open a Word document and off I go, and I make things up as I go along, and I put the ideas in a Word document so that I don't forget what I wrote before, and it tends to be that just scenes pop into my head and I write different scenes and then I join them all together. And I get to a certain point where I've got enough scenes where I will actually stop and plan what other scenes need to go between them. And that is what I feel is the tipping point of any book, when I know that it's going to be finished soon, because I've actually had to sit down and think about the structure. Because it's like I'll sit down and I'll think, they need to know more about this bit, so I'm going to have a scene that illustrates X. And then I think, where am I going to put it in the set of scenes I've already got? And that's when I know that it's there, and this will be a finished book at some point. With the short stories, I'm more likely to write in a straight line, but it's sometimes the short stories just happen and I have no idea how I got to the end. It's just, oh look, I've got a story.
The zen of story writing.
Yes, yeah. That's always nice when they happen like that. That's like the best.
I mean, sometimes we also write to order as well. I mean, it's like when we did the A to Z for the Fantasy Boys, one of our blogs, we actually had Drabble Erotic, which was Drabbles every day, based on a word based on a letter of the alphabet. And we actually picked those words not quite at random.
They had to be objects.
But let's face it, there's not many objects beginning with Z, so it gets fairly limited.
I was just saying, I was there. I saw that it was wonderful.
But then we wrote to order basically from those particular words. So I can do to order as well as to sudden inspiration as well. It just takes a bit more work.
Yes, because you have to sit down and go think, and then something will come out. But it's fun sometimes. But yeah, usually it's just, for me, it's completely random. I just go, I've got an idea. Whereas she doesn't, she plans.
So you spoke of using word processor, using Scrivener. I think you talked about some sort of mapping tool you had with ideas. What are some other tools and resources you use to write?
Google! Yeah, Google. Ever need resourcing? If I need to know something, I'll probably Google it. It's brilliant having that.
I discovered the other day when our internet connection went down exactly how difficult it was to write without Google, because I couldn't check my facts, and it was like, Google! So yeah, Google's very important.
Also, I tend to use Google Translate as well. If I'm looking for a name, sometimes to get inspiration, I will actually find a word I think defines my particular character or an aspect of the character, and I'll go and translate it into multiple languages on Google Translate to see what comes up. So, oh, that's an interesting comment. I'll use that as the name and stuff like that. So that's quite fun.
Sophie, have you ever heard of BehindTheName.com?
No, I haven't.
You should go there because there is a theme section of that where I'll actually list like multiple words, and you click on it and it will give you names from all across the world, both modern and ancient names.
Oh, cool. Ooh,
Yeah, it's just BehindTheName.com. It's a fantastic resource.
Good.
Sorry to interrupt you, Tasha.
Oh,
Do you want me to call you Tasha or Natasha?
Tasha's good, thanks.
All right, I should have asked that a lot sooner, but.
Hey, we answer to both names, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, we answer to "Hey you" a lot as well, because people who can't tell us apart, which happens more often than you think, considering we often have different hairstyles. They will.
And one of you has glasses on.
Yes, and they often just go, hello, at which point, yeah, you know that they have no idea which one you are. It's like the other day, Sophie was coming to visit me in my house, and my next door neighbour had a long conversation with her, assuming she was me. So I didn't bother dissuading her of this fact because it's just not worth the effort. I just passed on the information when I got inside. Yeah, but yeah, so we also have a good work. You created a Word Excel spreadsheet, didn't you? Yes, which is word counter. I find. Have you ever done NaNoWriMo?
Oh yes, that's actually where I wrote my novel I told you about.
Yeah.
And the reason why I started my career again was because of Nano.
Because I really find that their word count, daily word count, is actually a very, very good motivator. Because you know you've got a target. So what I did is I wrote myself an Excel spreadsheet which does the same thing. So that but it has variable number of days and variable word count, so that I can give myself targets. And I find that very useful if I'm trying to get something finished, because I will tell myself I have to write this every day, and it prods me and it goes, no, you haven't written enough yet. And I find that very useful. That's sort of a.
That's awesome. Would you like to hear my quick blurb about Nano, my experience with it? And like I said, it was the reason why I decided to start writing again, because of everything that happened with my injury and all of that. And I've been doing fanfic for the longest time, and a friend is like, oh, hey, you going to do Nano? I'm like, oh, I guess I'll look into it. There's a story I've always wanted to write. So I got everything together I needed to. I only designed my characters. I didn't really design the plot beyond just a basic outline in my head. And then I started writing, and I actually dedicated like 3 days to it. And I even did an online group, which no one showed up to. But I'm like, by the end of the first 3 days, I want to have 6,000 words. And by the end of 3 days, I had 12,000 words.
Ooh, that's good. Good.
But it didn't stop from there. I ended up finishing within 14 days. I had 50,000.
Wow.
And I'm like, I would have finished sooner, actually. I probably would have finished 10 days, but I was having major drama issues with my Star Wars guild. And when I get upset about something, I don't feel like doing anything. But I was like, if I could finish 50,000 words in 14 days, I think I need to be a writer. So that was what started me off. And this was the last Nano.
Cool. Yeah, I tend to... I mean, I love Nano because it's got a kind of group motivation as well, because there's a whole bunch of people doing it, and I think it's a really, really good thing to do. And actually, I mean, your kind of revelation, I really want to do this, I want to be a writer. It's fabulous, I mean, because they have Junior Nano as well. And we've got your goddaughter does Junior Nano, and it's great for the young ones coming through as well, to encourage them to produce an actual piece of fiction over a fixed period of time. It's fabulous.
No, that is fabulous, because growing up, I mean, I tried to write a lot, but I had no way of getting feedback. I was actually very lonely in the pursuit of it, and I'm just happy for the internet now because, I can get responses back. I can talk to people. I mean, Tasha, you and me talk on email about some of my story ideas, which has been fantastic for me.
It's been incredibly interesting for me too.
I aim to please. So yeah, did you guys do Nano last year?
Yes, I've done Nano for the last 4 years, or is it 3 years?
I think it's 3 because I've done it for 2, and I've done it 1 year less than you.
I tried doing it way back in 2005, I think, but I never finished that. But then decided to do it seriously after starting the whole writing thing. It's what I used to finish 2 of my novels and to start my latest one. I mean, it's so incredibly useful. I love Nano. Brilliant.
Yeah,
Well, remind me to add you to my Nano list when we get closer to it.
definitely.
Swap buddies.
Yep.
Now, for female writers, and I suffer this as a male writer for the opposite, would you say that your characters are predominantly female, or would you say you have a mix of male to female characters?
Actually, I'd say we're predominantly male. I think because of the
slash fan fiction background, where we were writing male characters with male characters, I think that's where we came from. So we started writing original stuff with male characters, especially because most of the erotica we write is male. So and that's just where the inspiration was for those. So a lot of the especially the short stories. I mean, I've literally really only just started branching out into having female characters as the lead. I mean, I've had female characters as part of the ensemble before, but it's like there was Ianthe for the A to Z, which I'm going to turn her into probably a novella, I suspect. And then my latest novel has a female lead, and so it's my first branch out into having the major character and the major point of view being female.
I think it's also what we grew up with as kids as well. I mean, most of the sci-fi and fantasy we grew up with was mainly male leads. I mean, Star Trek is probably the only one where you've actually got quite a large number of females in it at quite senior levels. And you had Leia in Star Wars, but
And Luke.
pardon?
Again, fans, I live in Alaska.
Yeah, so actually it's a lot of fun to write female characters now.
Yeah, I'm getting into it slowly. I mean, it's something I'm getting used to and thinking, actually, yes, that's a female lead or something. I tend to write male leads surrounded by strong female characters.
Are you sure that's not erotica? Because it sounds like it's...
You see, with erotica, I always like the menage tag, you see. Especially where you have the 2 guys and the 1 girl, and she gets to call the shots. I always like those ones. So, but yeah, no, it's funny that we didn't have. It's like I've actually got 1 novel that's already published, but I want to take it down and re-edit it because I actually want to change one of the characters to be a female character because I think I can actually improve it a great deal with a different type of character in that role. And it just didn't occur to me before, and suddenly it went, well, why didn't I do that? That would have been so much better. And so I've got one that I actually want to change because of that. But I do enjoy writing male characters, though. It's a lot of fun.
So, expanding onto this conversation, how do you tap into the male mind? And by that, I mean, being females, it's going to be a world different. I mean, I find difficulty in writing female characters, especially being the main character. How do you get into the mind? And even tougher than that, doing the male-male erotica, you now have to do it for 2 different people. How do you feel are you successful in doing that, and how do you tap into that?
I think I like George R.R. Martin's thing when he was asked the opposite question, how do you write such decent female characters? And he just said, I just write human beings. And I think that's how I go at most of the characters. I look at them as people rather than as just what sex they are. But when you're writing, but it does help that you're writing gay characters some of the time as well, because you can get, if you you can get a bit of the feminine in there as well, for certain a certain trope of gay character. Although I think the other useful thing is beta readers. I mean, your husband, he does a beta reading sometimes. He goes, no, a bloke would not do that. Yeah, he's very useful for things like that.
Even the gay stuff?
Pardon, sorry?
Even the gay stuff?
Oh yeah, he reads that for me as well. He's not as fond of that as the as just the fantasy stuff, but he will read it for me and tell me if I've done something really stupid. So yeah, and the thing is, because we come from the fan fiction background, I think that helps as well, because we've seen male characters on the screen and in books. So there's an advantage there in that we see how the characters are supposed to react in the male environment because we've been watching them, we've been reading them. So you can reproduce that in fiction as well. And you can base, and also we know men. We don't live in a female-only society, so it's observation as well.
Do you know where a female-only society exists? Because I figure that will increase my chances for dates.
We'll let you know if we find one.
All right, thank you.
Yes, when DC finally make Wonder Woman, we find her island. Yeah. Yes, but yes, so it's just about writing the characters really, and thinking about how you think a person would react in that situation. And I mean,
And observation.
and observation, yeah.
I think that's how any writer can write, because I mean, I think the same thing goes for how do you write someone of colour when we're clearly white? How do we write someone of a different religion and things like that? It's got to be talking to people, finding things out, observing people, and actually bringing all that together. So we can't say we're writing from the perspective of the person of colour necessarily, because we don't understand that perspective clearly, because we aren't that person. But we can at least try and represent them in a way that is appropriate.
No, I definitely agree with you there on that. Writing just the person, but definitely going out there, meeting people, talking to people. And I think that's the reason why they say that before you can ever really be a good writer, you've got to at least live life a little bit. Go out there and see what reality is before you can try to write it.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so we're coming close to the end of our thing, so I think that means 5 more hours of this. Give us a character, whether for your writing or ideas in your head or books you've read or TV movie shows that you've seen, and what do you like about them?
I think, let me see, one of the characters I admire and always will, I think, is Hermione Granger from Harry Potter. I thought as soon as I met her, even though Harry and Ron thought she was annoying, I loved her. I think because she's a bit like me, she's a stickler for the rules. I think she's got a really brave heart, and she's intelligent as well. And she uses her brain, and she's not afraid to use it. And she's loyal as well. I really, really like Hermione. I think she's a brilliant character.
Let's think. Characters. I think one of the characters I like the best is from my favourite book series, which is the Belgariad. And I love Polgara. Polgara is brilliant. She can take on kings, emperors, gods, just by staring at them and giving them the evil eye, and they back down. I think she's brilliant, and yeah, I remember
She's had to put up with her father for
Yeah.
hundreds of years, so
thousands.
thousands, sorry.
Yeah, and so I remember reading her as a teenager, and I've loved her ever since. And it still is my go-to favourite book series, the Belgariad. It's brilliant. How about you?
Oh, sure. Now you put me on the spot. Um, I think one of my most favorite characters is one that I read as a child. It was Matilda by Ronald Dahl.
Oh yeah.
And I really like her as a character um, because she was very strong. She was a strong-willed person, but she was also very smart, but she lived in a world that didn't appreciate what she could do.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, she was still a child, but everyone looked at her as a child, that she was only this one specific thing and she couldn't be anything else. And in order to rise above the situation, she had to work that much harder, but she also had to like manipulate things behind the scene to get the things that she wanted.
Yeah, I like Matilda as well. I mean, I think Roald Dahl has some really good characters, but Matilda is probably one of the best of them. Because
I love the movie.
Yes, the movie's good too. Yeah.
Oh, I love the movie as well. I was worried about the movie because it's like, oh, you know, all movies based on books tend to suck. So, but I was pleasantly surprised about that.
Actually, yeah, Roald Dahl adaptations, apart from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which has been
I like the first one. The first one was fantastic. The second one sucked.
Yeah, yeah. I just like watching Charlie and the Chocolate Factory to see how all the kids get it. Those obnoxious children. Yes. But, yeah.
Well, I also really identify with Charlie as well in the Chocolate Factory. I haven't actually read the book yet. I always wanted to, but saw the movie when I was young, and I think that would be another character I think predominantly about because it's like he does come from a humble beginnings. I mean, his family is very poor, and he feels like he has no real identity. He's not noticed, and the one thing he wants in the world is like winning the lottery. And most people will think, oh, well, you know, everyone has an equal chance, so, you know, I'm going to try for it. But he has, oh, sorry, I'm kind of tearing up. He just doesn't believe in himself at all. And there's a part in the movie, and I don't know how if it was in the book at all, that I really liked, that he took a chance, you know, when he found out that the last ticket was fake, and he just, it's like, you know, he has a little bit of money left, just take a chance, and it paid off for him. He got what he really wanted, and it's just a very memorable moment for me.
Yeah. I read the book in primary school. It was a good book, but don't bother with Great Glass Elevator. That wasn't a good book. But Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, superb book.
and yeah, I mean, Roald Dahl hits the nail on the head with that one.
He's very, very good at writing children who are actually much more intelligent than the adults all around them, and who take their circumstances and refuse to be cowed by them.
Yeah, I mean, James and the Giant Peach as well.
Yeah, it's the same. I think that's why I like Harry Potter actually as well.
It was very Roald Dahl-esque in the beginning, anyway.
Yeah, in the first book, the first few chapters of Harry Potter, it's very, until he gets to Hogwarts, it's very like you think you're going to read a Roald Dahl book, and then it just branches off and becomes.
Well, I haven't read the Harry Potter books yet. I really want to one day, but these days I don't read anything. And if I could hijack this one more time to describe a favorite part of that, I think it was in the first movie, yeah, when they're giving points at the end. God, I gotta stop doing this. I get really emotional when I describe characters, so I apologize for that. but it was the kid who stood in Harry's way to prevent him from going to the. I don't remember specifically, something to do with the Cerberus, but you know, he stood up for his convictions, even though for the plot it was the wrong thing to do, but he didn't know that. He
Yes.
was doing what he thought was right, and he was willing to stand up for that. And because of that, he was seen as a hero, even though it was Harry Potter who did this really great thing. He still got his moment to shine despite the circumstances.
Yes. Neville is a truly great character. All the way through the book series, Neville is just brilliant. And he does come into his own in the last book.
No, don't spoil it for me. I haven't seen the last movie yet.
Very quiet. Won't tell you. But it's really good.
All right. So, what milestones do you have set for yourself? What goals do you want to accomplish, and how do you measure success?
You go first. Okay. Well, milestones. I have some big ones for this year. So I'm setting myself. I've got 2 novels to finish. Plus, we've got to start we've got to carry on planning the second in the Horde Mysteries series, and I've got several serials that are running that I've got to write. So they're my big milestones. They're what I want to get done. But I think talking about my ultimate goal, I suppose, and what I want to accomplish, I want to be a full-time writer. I'm not at the moment. I have to actually earn a living doing my project management in IT half of my week, and the other half of my week I'm a professional writer. I want to be a professional writer full time. So measures of success. I think my book sales are growing all the time. I think I'm building up a body of work out there. My social media following is also growing, so I'm looking at that as a measure of success. But I think the ultimate thing would be actually managing to actually make a living at this writing thing, which unfortunately I can't at the moment, but I'm moving towards it. I want to get there. Yes. Yes, I want to get to that point as well. But also another measure of success is seeing people enjoy your work. There's nothing quite like it than seeing how somebody feeds back and has been taken to another place by your book. That's an amazing feeling when you read a good review. Yeah, I mean, let's face it, you could have book sales that are 1 a month. If someone actually says they really liked it, that's just worth everything, isn't it? Yeah, it's a great feeling. You suddenly feel, yes, I've done something right. I mean, of course, book sales are a measure of success, but definitely the feedback from the readers as well. And that's another thing that the fan fiction actually helped with, because fan fiction is a very interactive model, and so if you've been through that, you're also not afraid of the feedback. So you know that if somebody has actually taken the time to sit down and give you some feedback on your book, that they usually have a good reason for it. Occasionally, there's just some arse on Amazon who's gone through a whole section of books and given them 1-star reviews for no apparent reason, that they just didn't like gay fiction usually.
Yeah.
But most of the people that sit down and write a proper review, it's useful as well as being very, very nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, reviews are brilliant.
I actually was thinking, as you're talking, about another great thing about fan fiction for a lot of beginning writers, and I've seen this because I used to be the leader of my guild in Star Wars, and I was also in charge of the RP, so I'd often see a lot of people doing their backstories. And I think the one problem I saw more than anything that I had to keep talking to people on was Mary Sue's. I think that anyone who wants to get into writing, start with fanfic first and get feedback so you don't do Mary Sue's.
Yes. Yes, I mean, You don't want one character who can solve everything all the time.
Yeah.
Because that's boring. Because there's no what's the word I'm looking for? Conflict and stress in the plot if you've got one character who can fix everything. So I mean, I think that's the problem with a Mary Sue or a Marty Stu, depending on which sex they are. If you've got a character who's too good at everything, it's like I've always had a problem with Superman because he's just, unless you throw kryptonite at him, what can you do?
Well, in defense of Superman, and I'm not a huge fan of Superman, but it's not so much that he can do anything and he's invincible. You've got to put him into situations where he has to make tough choices, like the first Superman film, which I hate how he resolves that, but that's a realistic, do you save everyone or do you save the person that you love?
Yeah.
And in saving one thing, you destroy something else. Flying around the world to reverse time, which makes no sense whatsoever, is a horrible way to solve the problem, but that's how you challenge Superman, is to put him into a situation, and in that respect, he's not really a Mary Sue.
Oh no, but the problem I have with Superman is I'm a huge fan of hurt comfort, and you can't hurt him. So how can you comfort him? I mean, yeah, I suppose you have to mentally scar him, don't you? That would work. Yeah.
All right, so what do you think about the writing community as a whole, and what would you like to see from it? What do you most enjoy about it?
Well, I mean, the writing community is kind of, I wouldn't say split down the middle, but has two different backgrounds people come from. One is the indie writers, they're kind of the new lot who are muscling in on the writing community, and then you've got the writers with the traditional publishing backgrounds, some of who are moving into indie as well. And I think it's a very interesting dynamic at the moment that indie is kind of the new anarchy of publishing, and there's a tension but an interesting kind of dialogue beginning to happen around indie writers versus the ones who have publishing deals, and some are still saying the only way you can be really successful is having a publishing deal. Whereas publishing is trying to catch up with ebooks as well. They still haven't really figured it out, I don't think, about how it's really going to work. So it's a really interesting, dynamic, changing environment, I think, at the moment. And I love indie writers because, in general, we're a really supportive bunch. We help each other out. We make contacts. We host each other on each other's blogs. We talk about each other's books, because basically marketing and advertising costs a lot of money. So we're doing it by word of mouth. We're doing it by trying to share the information around to actually help each other. And I think that's a really, really good thing. I mean, that's one of the things I really like about the writing community on Google+, on the blogs. We've been meeting people, LiveJournal, everywhere. They really want to help each other. They want to support each other. I mean, it's like, because there are some people out there who seem to be utterly afraid that if person A is successful, they haven't got a chance of being successful. When actually there's a huge market out there. Just because J.K. Rowling selling 200 million books like a minute or something stupid, doesn't mean that somebody else can't be successful as well. And I think that a lot of the writing community, well, the indie writing community at least, recognises that. And everybody wants everybody else to be successful. And
that's not to say we're not a bit jealous. Somebody is, but
oh yes, is it? Yeah.
Hey, good on them.
Yeah, but it's sort of that's what I like about it. I like the community spirit. There is when people come together, they tend to be very nice about it as well. I mean, I don't think I've met anyone in the writing community who was completely, well, the Indian writing community that is, who I wouldn't want to talk to again. I mean, let's face it, there's a couple of authors, mainstream authors out there, who are quite vocal and a bit bonkers. frankly, not looking at a certain vampire writer at all. So there don't seem to be as many egos in the indie side of things.
We can't afford them.
Well, yeah, because we've all got to help each other, otherwise we fall on our faces mostly. So it's sort of, I think that's what I like about it, the fact that there is community and cross-pollination and friendships.
I think it's interesting when you mentioned J.K. Rowling, that some people feel like they couldn't ever reach that measure of success. I think J.K. Rowling has also kind of ruined the writing industry. Don't get me wrong, I like her. I hope to meet her one day and kiss her ring or whatever. But I think she has ruined it as well because of expectations. I've met a lot of writers who, when I start talking to them about the indie industry and all of that, and I haven't really found success yet, so there's not really a whole lot of leg I can stand on, but I tell them of other people that I've read about and all of that. They have this notion that all they have to do is write this really great story, get it published, and then that's it. And they'll be rich and famous. And it's because of like J.K. Rowling, who had this amazing success. And a lot of them were like, well, I'm going to be the next J.K. Rowling. And it's like, J.K. Rowling didn't even want to be the next J.K. Rowling. She was just trying to pay her bills writing. And go ahead.
You didn't have the amazing success until about book 3.
I think book 3, because Prisoner of Azkaban, wasn't it? Wasn't that the one that won the award? Well, failed to win the award against Beowulf.
Didn't it come second to a translation of Beowulf in a literary award or something? And everybody went, well, why did she come second when she actually wrote something original and that's just a translation? I seem to remember that hitting headlines and things. That's when it really took off, wasn't it? So, and she put in a lot of hard work first. I mean, the first book was turned down how many times? Wasn't it 40 something?
It's lots, yeah.
So I mean, yeah, it's I mean, the writing world is hard. It's not for the faint of heart, and it isn't all about writing just one book. I do feel a bit sorry for people who think it is. You're right.
Well, I often try to educate them and let them know, plus some of the pitfalls with going to a publisher. One, there's a good chance you're going to get rejected, or two, they're going to try to tell you, how to change your book so they'll publish it. And me personally, I refuse to do that. I mean, if someone says, hey, this part's not really working, I'll go ahead and change it. But if someone says, this book is never going to sell because of this one scene, I'll be like, well, screw you, I'm going to try anyways. But when I tell this to people, they kind of have this attitude of, well, they know what they're talking about, so I'll listen to anything they have to say. And I'm just like, I'm flabbergasted when I see that. And I think that we really, as this is going to sound a little egotistical, and I apologize for it, but as people who study the industry and people who participate in it, we really need, I think that one of the things we need to do is really talk to the other writers out there and say, look, this is the reality of it. Stop living in your fairy tale. If you want to be successful, you have to have a different way of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to
be realistic, haven't you? I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a nice dream. J.K. Rowling is a wonderful dream to aim at, but it's not something that
it's not going to happen tomorrow. I mean, if you're really lucky, you might get a fantastic book deal and then a film deal and then be a billionaire like J.K. is. What? No, she isn't anymore, is she? Because she gave too much away to charity, didn't she?
She did, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she took herself off the billionaire list by giving away too much money
to charities.
Yeah.
Good on her. I mean, Stephanie Meyer has done, has also given that impression because, yeah, exactly. Twilight.
Don't say that word ever.
I think the person who was most pleased that she didn't write another one was Rob Patterson. I don't think anybody hates those films more than he does. But yeah, but I mean, because you do get the people who have the amazing success. I mean, you've got Amazon millionaires as well. The problem with Amazon is, yes, you could do that when they first started it, but they've changed the goalposts so many times that indies are finding it harder and harder to sell their books. I mean, as soon as they brought out KDP Select, I saw my book sales plummet. The month it came out, my book sales went from up here to down here, and it's just clawing back ever since. And frankly, I don't think they should be allowed to do that because it's it's monopolies, isn't it?
To a degree, yes.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy what they're allowed to get away with. I mean, oh, you can only get the 70% royalty rate if you put it in KDP Select, and it's like, pardon? In X number of countries, and it's like, that is very frustrating. And I'm assuming that's the set of countries where it isn't illegal. Yes, you have to do that, yeah. It's very frustrating because I mean they take every time we indie authors get together and find a way to work the system, they take it away. Like the tags. Yeah, they're gone. They were really useful for a while, and then we figured out how to use them, and they took them away. Very frustrating. That's one of the realities of indie. And then look at W.H. Smith and Kobo, who took every single self-published book off their database and have completely failed to put most of them back. Just because the Daily Mail, I think it was the Daily Mail's fault, in this country, decided they were going to do a search, and they found that there was daddy porn next to children's books because clearly their search engine wasn't working very well. So rather than fix the search engine, they just removed the books. They left on 50 Shades of Grey, though. That was still okay.
Well, to be fair, that's not really porn. That's just bad writing.
Yeah, I suppose trying to work out what's going on. It's got sex in it. No, it was just. I still wonder how they're going to make that into a movie. Yeah, how do you make a movie without making it soft porn?
How do they make Twilight in a movie?
I enjoyed the first Twilight movie. It was hilarious.
All right, so say that I've never read any of your books before, and well, you can criticize, make fun of me later for that. What would be a good first book to read?
Oh, probably Sacrifice of an Angel. Yeah, Sacrifice of an Angel, which is the first one in the Horwood Mysteries, which is the one we wrote together. Because it's meaty enough to get an idea of, I think, what type of stuff we write, and you can read it on its own as well. It's not it is the first of a series. There's going to be 7 books, but you can read it on its own. It's a murder mystery you can read standalone without a problem. If you wanted
Go on.
Sorry, if you wanted an individual book of ours, I would say that with mine, I would suggest Cat's Call, which is the first in the Chronicles of Charlie Waterman, simply because it's a very easy read. And so you can get and it's fantasy and totally escapist and a lot of fun. How about yours? I'd say Bonds of Fire for mine, which is a free book. It's a free novella. Which it's dragons and fantasy and augmented humans, and I think again it gives a good idea of the kind of way I write and who I write. And there are actually we do have many free books on our site as well. So if you want to test authors without actually buying one, there are free books. There are free books in the Horwood Mystery series, which are short stories. We have some, mostly they are short stories that are free, but they give a good idea of the writing style, so you can like try stuff out without having to ship out any cash. So for all those who are feeling a bit hard up, we have plenty of free stories, and they're very easy to find because there's a free tag on our website, and so all the free ones will pop up.
Well, I would love to give you my money, but then I don't really have money, so I'll definitely check out those free ones. Actually, I wish I had known sooner you guys had free ones, because I definitely would have loved to have read one first and then talk about it. And I guess that answers my next question of where we can get your books. Is it just on your website, or do you also do Amazon, Smashbooks?
We actually, you can buy them on Amazon, Smashwords, iBooks, all sorts. Basically, our website lists where you can get every book. So every book listing has links to the other sites. So all the Amazon sites, all of the and Smashwords as well, and it breaks it down to Sony and Barnes and Noble and Kobo and things like that as well. Yeah. So WhittakenPress.com has all the book listings, but we are on Amazon and we are on Smashwords. So we're on all the major sites basically, except Kobo at the moment. We're trying to get our books back up on Kobo. We're hitting them with a big stick, or attempting to, but we're not there at the moment. But we are everywhere else. Google Play. Google Play, yeah, Google Play as well. If you can ever find anything, Google Play.
So go ahead and choose one of your books or series, and which one that you would like to be seen into a movie, and would you have any thoughts on which actors you'd like to play your characters?
The Hallwood Mysteries. Yeah, definitely. We like the Hallwood Mysteries because we'd really like it to be the next Midsummer Murders, please. Because we think it would fit the 2-hour weekly format really well. Yeah. So I mean, our characters in that, let me see who would play them. Okay, so they've got the twins, Remy and Theo, who are the main characters. They're police officers, and they are the ones doing the investigation of the crime. They investigate magical crime, so they're natural magic users. I think it had to be one actor, I think, playing both of them, because I don't know any twins that I'd want to play them, twin actors. So I think it would have to be one actor. So, and if we're talking real dream casting, Tom Hiddleston. Yeah, yes, totally. He'd do really well.
Who was that?
Tom Hiddleston.
Oh.
Yes. And then there's a character called Liz, who's one of our female leads. I think someone good young actress, British again, Gemma Arterton. Gemma Arterton. She'd be good. She'd be good as that. There's a kind of YA age character called Raven. Raven
Simone.
Pardon, sorry?
I said Raven Simone.
Who's the guy from the Sarah Jane Adventures? Tommy Knight. Yeah, he'd be good for Raven because he's about the right age. Oh, DSI Sato. Yeah, we have a female Asian detective superintendent, Lucy Liu. Yeah, Lucy Liu. She'd be brilliant. I
love Lucy Liu.
She's brilliant. I love her in Elementary.
I love that show.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
I've always wanted to know what people from the UK thought of that show, since it's basically a story that originates from their country and is now an American adaptation.
Elementary for me is brilliant as long as I don't assume it's Sherlock Holmes, because the names are the same, but that's about it. I love the characters. I think they're brilliantly written, and the basic relationships that they bring in from Sherlock Holmes are fine, but I don't think of it as Sherlock Holmes, although some of my friends actually think it's better than Sherlock. So some of my Brit friends prefer it as an adaptation to Sherlock, whereas I think there's completely different things and I don't want to compare them. So yeah, but I do like it. I think Elementary's fun and it's interesting, and the direction they've taken the characters, I think is interesting and engaging. And Johnny Lee Miller is cool too. Yeah.
Yeah, it surprised me to learn that he was the guy in Hackers. I'm like, no way, that's him.
I remember him from Dracula 2000. Yeah, Dracula 2000. Yeah. Yes.
All right. So, how do you handle writer's block?
When it's sort of the first First way I do it is kick myself up the bottom and go, you haven't got writer's block, write something. And I try and go and write, if what I'm trying to write isn't working, I'll go off and write something completely different. And just attempt to come up with something out of the air. Because that tends to make the brain go somewhere else and can be helpful. Of course, that doesn't always work.
No, I have been known to get a bit grumpy if I get writer's block. It hasn't really happened to me seriously very often, but if it does, I mean, I've ever actually once had a time when I couldn't write at all, and I just had no inspiration, no will, no nothing to write, and that was awful. It was only about a week, thank goodness, but that was absolutely dreadful. I think it was to do with stress and tiredness and things like that, and I just was just, but because my imagination wasn't even working then, and I'm used to being able to just sit down if I'm bored and just think of something and think about a scene I want to write or an idea that's come into my head, and if I can't do that, that really, really upsets me.
Yeah, so sometimes with that type of, if it's that type of writer's block, then often going off and engaging in something else which is relaxing and fun can be useful.
And just accepting it's happening and just try and do something else whilst it is.
Or a very large bar of chocolate sometimes helps too. That can be helpful.
Good. I know what to get for your birthday.
Because it's like my husband sometimes has to travel for work, and I often find that I can't write worth a damn whilst he's away because I'm not settled. So I don't like him going away very often.
Keep him on short.
Yeah, I have to keep him. Yeah, I have to keep him at home because I have to be able to. I mean, it's like I'm not. You hear about these tortured writers who write best when they're completely miserable. That's totally not me. I have to be like, calm and happy to be able to write stuff properly. So I often find that going away and just having some fun, or another thing I sometimes do is go off and watch an episode of Mission Impossible, because there's nothing better for a feel-good factor than Mission Impossible.
I'm assuming you're talking about the original series?
Oh, yes. Yes, have it all on DVD. And it's just, the problem is if you watch too much, you end up thinking that 5 people can solve any problem in the entire world.
All right, and what advice do you have for anyone interested in becoming an author?
Oh, I think keep at it. Don't give up. I mean, there are an awful lot of hurdles when it comes to writing, and I know it sounds depressing when the first thing you tell them is it's going to be tough, but it is, but it's worth it. I mean, even the one review or the one person that took the time, or the one sale in your first 6 months, it's worth it. You can keep building, you can keep going. You just have to have the stamina to do it, I think. And I think that's the best advice for writers is anyone can do it. They just need practice and time and patience.
Yes. And you need to have faith in yourself, but you also need to realise that some people can give you advice. Just make sure it's good advice, and it's advice that is actually applicable to you.
Yeah, because, I mean, there's for every 100 websites giving writing advice, probably 10 will apply to a particular person. I mean, you have to know yourself as a writer to know what advice is useful to you, because there may be style writing advice that actually doesn't quite apply to your style. And things like that. I mean, the emphasis at the moment is to clean writing up, get it down to the minimum, get it down to fairly straightforward information. And in some cases that works, and in some cases that doesn't. It depends what you're writing. So it's a case of practice, try things out, experiment, put stuff out there and see what people think as well. I mean,
Get feedback,
and talk to other people.
Ooh. And get an editor if you can.
Oh yes, get an editor, somebody who isn't you, to look at your work.
Before you publish it.
Well, before you publish it and try and make money from it. You can publish it quite happily on. There's a whole bunch of sites where you can share your stuff and go, what do people think of it? It's fair enough. But if you're going to actually go and try and sell this product, it is a product. You do have to polish it. The first draft is not going to be the best, even though you think it's the most wonderful thing on the face of the planet when you finished it. We all do that. I usually hate mine by the time I get to finish them, but I have to leave them for a while and then come back and go, actually, it's not bad. But yeah, take the time. Don't rush things, but it's worth it.
Yeah, have faith in yourself because it's worth it in the end.
All right, so we've come to the end of our interview. And is there any last things you want to say, any parting words or anything you feel is left unsaid?
Well, I'd say thank you for having us.
Yes, it's been a very fun evening. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I think we covered most things because
we rambled a bit, didn't we? Yes.
Thank you for that, by the way, honestly, because it's like, one of the tough things about doing interviews is getting something out of the other person. They're kind of like taking all the direction from me, and then none of my jokes seem that funny. So
they were very funny.
Thank you.
Yes, it's been lovely. Thank you, and I think we covered just about everything. Yeah.
And then some.
Yeah. And we got to geek out.
Oh yes, that was such a delight. That's why I think we have to do this again in 6 months or something.
That'll be fun. Yeah, definitely.
All right, so that was the interview with Natasha Duncan-Drake. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, and also Sophie Duncan. And if anyone is watching this and hasn't bought their books, go and buy all of their books at least 3 times so they can be full-time writers. And if you're buying books, can you maybe buy my book? Yes? No? I guess not. Just buy their books. Now below you're going to see a text interview. I had them both fill out since I'm doing an interview with them together. I put both of their answers below. If you are interested in finding out any of their other writings, you'll see the links down below of where you can find their writings, as well as some other social media sites if you want to get in contact with them. Beyond that, I thank you both very much for doing this interview today, and I hope you both have a very good night.
Thank you.
Take care.
And you. Bye.